The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 86, recorded on Friday, April 28th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And we are back.
Dun dun.
And on today's episode, we discuss everything we missed while Jason was on vacation.
It wasn't just me.
It was all Jason's fault. Nothing else happened.
Nothing really important.
Nothing. I maybe got engaged. But first, the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
First up, Fox News has now settled its lawsuit with Dominion, paying over $787 million to the small $90 million company. Were your hopes and dreams of having Tucker Carlson take the stand dashed, Jason?
Yes. And, they really didn't admit much in this lawsuit, which is why you settle in the first place, is so that you don't have to admit that you were openly lying to your public. All they did is read a brief statement on air saying that the judge basically made them read the statement.
Right.
and that was pretty much it. There was nothing really solid that they admitted to, nothing that we really wanted. But of course, you've got the lawyers and this corporation. Do they really care that Fox News has to admit that they lie to people as part of their business? No, they don't care. They want the $787 million, more money than they would ever hope to have otherwise.
Well, and let's put things in perspective as well. So they as in Dominion, originally asked for $1.6 billion, right? And when you have settlements that are that big, you usually go into those lawsuits not expecting to get that much money, especially when it's a defamation lawsuit against a large corporate news agency.
Right, specifically a news agency who they're constantly reporting on news. They're going to get some things wrong. You have to prove that they had malicious intent and that they knew what they were doing was wrong. And obviously, the evidence in this case was enough to make Fox and Rupert Murdoch pay almost $1 billion.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, with the laws that are stacked so much in Fox News' advantage, the fact that they blinked and chose to settle instead just shows you how screwed they actually were.
And how damaging it would have been to have all of that become public.
Absolutely. So while we did not get Tucker Carlson on the stand, something else did happen. Fox News and Tucker Carlson have officially parted ways.
He was fired.
He was totally fired.
Yeah, his show last Friday, he said, we'll be back on Monday and we're going to have an interview and all this stuff.
We'll see you on Monday.
Did not actually happen. Monday morning, Fox News announced that they had amicably parted ways with Tucker Carlson. And that's not true. And that's not what all of the reporting that's come out since has said.
Of course. So now why do you think, because there's been all the speculation about it now, so why do you think Tucker Carlson was gone?
Well, I think it is a mixture of a couple things. And I've got a few down here that we can go through. And I think it's all of these things together. One, the Dominion lawsuit is certainly part of it. Tucker Carlson's texts were a big part of the discovery because he actually texted with his producers saying that he knew it was all a lie, that Rudy Giuliani and all of the Trump people were full of shit. And everything that they said was a lie, and he didn't believe any of it, but then went on air and espoused the same theories that they were proposing. So I think, one, Tucker Carlson not keeping all of that to himself and putting it in a way that could be subpoenaed and could be used in a lawsuit is one of the issues. And then I also think the upcoming lawsuit from Tucker Carlson's former head of booking, Abby Grossberg, in which she is suing both Fox News and Tucker Carlson for creating a hostile work environment. She said that people on the show, producers and engineers and all the people connected with the show were super misogynistic, super racist. They would constantly say things to demean her. They had pictures of Nancy Pelosi, photoshopped onto swimsuit model bodies. Yeah. And it's, I think that's part of it, because a lot of what she had was also being subpoenaed by Dominion in their lawsuit, because she took a lot of company correspondence that she was privy to into her lawsuit. And those were a lot of the things that we were just talking about, conversations about Rudy Giuliani, things like that, came out of her lawsuit. So I think we might still get to see some of the stuff we didn't get to see in the Dominion lawsuit in this Abby Grossberg suit, unless they also settle with her. Maybe she's not going to be as willing to just settle for cash as Dominion is. Who knows? One of the crazier stories that came out that I think is also probably part of it, because there's a lot of reporting coming out from multiple sources that is being pushed by Vanity Fair, is that Rupert Murdoch's ex-fiance, Anne Leslie Smith, was a huge Tucker Carlson fan, to the point where she thought he was a messianic figure sent by God.
Ooh.
And apparently she's kind of a religious crackpot. She has always been married to super rich guys. Like her entire, she's in her 60s right now. Rupert Murdoch is in his 90s. But she has had multiple marriages to very rich people in the past. And she's apparently like extremely religious, like end times kind of evangelical. Like the world's going to end any day now. And she believes that Tucker Carlson is like God's messenger. And apparently Rupert Murdoch doesn't really care that much for openly religious people. And the story was that at a dinner that they were having with Tucker Carlson, she pulled out a Bible and started reading verses from Exodus to Tucker Carlson. And like literally within like the next week, their engagement was off. And this was just recently. So this kind of fallout with his ex-fiance, and apparently it's kind of soured Rupert Murdoch's relationship with Tucker Carlson as well. And a lot of people are saying, you know, he is the type of person that would be petty enough to fire her favorite cable news guy and like figure of worship, or at least idolization, Tucker Carlson. And I think that's fun if it's true. We have links to all the stories. You can kind of check it out yourself. One of the things I also find very interesting, it's coming out of Rolling Stone, where they have 8 different sources that they are quoting from Fox News saying that Fox executive, I think she's the head of communications at Fox News, Irina Briganti, they are calling it an opposition file, an oppo file, a stockpile of damaging information on Tucker Carlson.
Because this is what you do on your like biggest cash cows of your company.
Right. Well, just to keep him in check because he knows all the secrets. This is like basically like what Scientology allegedly does with all of their big celebrity people. They take all of like their confessions in those things, and they stockpile all that information to use against them if they were ever to leave or speak out against the church. It's the same way with Fox News and Tucker Carlson. They have this treasure trove of information on Tucker Carlson that they are threatened to release if he tries to go after the network. And I don't know if you saw, Tucker Carlson did have a video that he released on Twitter.
I saw that he did something, but I didn't care enough to watch.
It's very short, and he really doesn't say anything. He basically blames the liberals.
Oh, cool.
For, you know, like that, and like an opposition to the truth. Like, nobody wants to hear the truth, and I'm telling the truth, and that's why I'm...
That's like Fox News fired you.
He doesn't say anything about Fox. He doesn't, blame anyone, and it kind of fits in with this reporting that's being done. So I think it's interesting. I do think it's a combination of a lot of different things where Fox basically just realized that it wasn't worth it. Media Matters also reported that the ads on the Tucker Carlson show, while he does get a huge viewership, a lot of advertisers have been leaving.
Yeah.
And like they were counting the number of ads on a recent show, and it was like 5 ads all from the same, like very small,
like Cash for Gold company.
It was like a meal, like buy our bucket of slop for the end times, like those dehydrated meal bucket places. And they shouldn't have enough money to buy 5 ads on the biggest primetime cable news show.
Right.
But yet they somehow do. And that was speculation that Fox doesn't have enough people willing to advertise on Tucker's show because of the extreme views that he espouses. He's a huge replacement there. He even pushed great replacement theories in that video I was talking about, where he said, the things that people should be talking about. One of the things was demographic change. Yeah. So I think because of that, he's been losing advertisers, and maybe that plays a part of this as well.
My whole thing with this is, one, I'm glad he's gone. I hate him. I'm
He's
glad.
damaging to society.
Right. But I'm also not like hyper jumping for joy, because I absolutely know that Fox News is just going to replace him with someone just as bad, if not even worse. Because
And he'll also come back on some other media. Hopefully he follows the Bill O'Reilly route of just trying to get as much money as he can and just having his own, like, behind a paywall.
I was
show.
thinking like just the Rush Limbaugh way, and
Well, at least Rush Limbaugh was still on, like, public over the air. Like, Bill O'Reilly just does, like, a podcast that you have to pay for.
I was trying to make a Rush Limbaugh.
Die?
Yeah,
Like, he could die.
There you go.
Get throat cancer and die.
There
I would
you
be
go.
fine with that.
But my concern is because we know from the Dominion lawsuit Discovery, which I am also sad that we didn't get all our great moments, and I also wasn't really expecting too much out of it because it is just a private corporation or private company. I do totally get it. But what we do know is that Rupert Murdoch and Fox execs are aware of how their Fox viewers are pushing harder and harder to the right, and they need to captivate that audience. And they're going to do what they need to, because that's what they said in the literal text from the lawsuit, that they need to compete with Newsmax to make sure that they don't lose any people to the far right stuff. And that's what concerns me.
It's just too bad that that's all lies, and it opens them up for these kinds of lawsuits because
Right.
they literally have to lie in order to pander to that audience.
Right. I'm not jumping for joy because I think misinformation is going to be solved, or we're all going to be in a better place now because Tucker Carlson isn't in. Like, it's still going to be just as bad, if not worse. Now, once a new person finds their footing in that time slot, they're going to become the new Tucker Carlson, the new Bill O'Reilly. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as they can pander the crazy ass stuff that these people want.
For now, the ratings are way down. I guess the MSNBC show is actually beating that the rotating host that they have going on right now in Tucker's spot.
Also, did you see Don Lemon was fired too?
Yes, the same day, Monday, Don Lemon was fired from CNN.
Sorry,
Again,
Don.
didn't really give a reason. It came as a surprise to Don Lemon, who released a statement saying that he was informed by his agent. The only thing people point to are two instances. One, Don Lemon was way off base when talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and Tulsi Gabbard saying that we need to basically stop having politicians that are past their prime. Obviously referring to Joe Biden, even though Donald Trump is almost as old as Joe Biden, but whatever. And Don Lemon really put his foot in his mouth by saying, well, Tulsi Gabbard's in her 50s. Women are really statistically in their prime in their 20s and 30s. Well, he's confusing.
What an idiot.
Yes, he's confusing what the topic is, which is talking about like mental health in your prime, like your cognitive abilities, and sexually, which is what people talk about when they say that women are in their prime in their 20s and 30s. They're talking about reproductively in their prime. Doesn't have anything to do with cognitive ability. And the two female co-hosts of that program tried to point that out to him, and he still was like, no, look at the fact it's not me saying this. These are the studies, these are the facts. And it's like, no, you are confused.
You're confused on national television, buddy.
And you need to just
shut up right now.
And just be like, well, actually, you know what? I think I am
We're
mistaken.
not on Fox. You're going to get fired immediately.
So there was that, and that was actually a few weeks ago, I believe. And then there was a more recent incident, which I don't see where the problem is, but he was talking to, I forget the name of the Republican rep that he was talking to. It was an Indian American gentleman who was basically trying to tell him that the reason that African Americans have civil rights is because of the NRA. And Don Lemon was pushing back against that, saying, no, that has nothing to do with it. The NRA did not fight for civil rights. It's not just, and it was basically a pro-gun stance of like, really, if you want to fight for rights in this country, you have to arm yourself, and and protecting the Second Amendment is the most important thing, because if everyone's armed, no one's going to take your rights away. Like, that's a stupid argument. And then how does anyone have rights in anywhere else in the world that doesn't have the freedom to buy assault rifles from the corner store like we have here? And Don Lemon was pointing out, like, all it leads to is mass shootings and people being less safe, and does not gain you any civil rights. That African Americans had the right to bear arms arms for quite a long time before they actually got civil rights. So it was a contentious thing. The co-host kind of didn't say anything through most of that, and he was like kind of yelling at the producers. He took his earpiece out and was like, I can't be in this conversation. You guys are yelling in my ear. This guy's trying to talk to me. I can't hear what's going on. And he seemed to be kind of combative. And that was cited as possibly a reason that his contract was not renewed, or however they phrased it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that one, and I know maybe, CNN has been pushing further and further right. Nobody want, you don't want to push away one of the few Republicans that'll come on their shows. I suppose I could see that side of it. Obviously, I wouldn't agree with that because who cares? But that I could see maybe that having something to do with it. But I think we know a little bit less about the Don Lemon situation than we do about Tucker Carlson, because it's less sensational, so you have less people really reporting on it.
I mean, is it bad that I don't care?
No.
I don't really care about Don Lemon.
No, I'm never a huge fan. He's a little bit too much of a moderate for my tastes. So is CNN.
Well, and I would say, I'm just going to argue with this in general. We'll complain about Fox News all day long. We have a whole segment dedicated to it. But at the end of the day, just my own personal take, don't watch CNN or MSNBC.
Yeah, they're all the huge corporations. They don't care about workers' rights or labor or anything like that. They're not progressive. They're not leftists.
But there's way better outlets for actual news consumption. And
us.
Yeah, I'm sure. But literally, it's just get something way better than CNN, where they just talk about the most random things all day long, unless there's something really big going on.
It's the same issue that we have with Fox. It's all about getting the highest number of views, making the most ad revenue.
Right.
I don't really care beyond that.
Go subscribe to the New York Times. That's way better.
Or your local paper, or
no, local papers don't exist anymore.
Well,
they're all
getting that way.
They're all bought up and they're gone now. They went the way of the dodo bird.
If you have a local paper, please support them. Support local journalists, support online journalists, support independent journalists. I think we should get some state-funded journalists.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But first, we have to talk about the thing that happened while you were in Japan.
Yes, it was in Japan, too. I don't think we mentioned that. I was in a country that I didn't have to worry walking down a dark street late at night if someone was going to have a gun. If I'm in a crowded public place and I have to worry about a mass shooting, I didn't have to worry about an argument taking place between two separate people that would escalate into a gunfire, and then I'd be caught in that. Nothing like that. It was quite nice.
So I really don't know how much I'm actually going to talk about this, because it's really old news at this point, but we have to talk about the fact that Trump got indicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records.
Yep, all stemming from the payments made to people like Stormy Daniels.
Yep.
Which his lawyer, Michael Cohen, went to prison for. And somehow Trump has escaped the law until now, years later.
Well, and again, you can kind of see how this story is unfolding, because the court system takes so long, and
when it comes
span,
to rich people.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
And our attention span is that of a fish. So you can see how no one's even talking about this anymore. We're so late to the ballgame on this. So what I really kind of wanted to talk about, though, is what you think this does for Trump and going forward with the Republican primary, because
it increased his popularity.
I was going to say, because now that polls have kind of come out a little bit more, now granted, you got to take them with a grain of salt, they've been more in favor of Donald Trump now.
It's leveling out, but yes, he took a huge bump right after this news that he was indicted. His popularity went up.
Which, can we just pause? Could you imagine getting indicted and having to plead not guilty on national TV to 34 counts of falsifying business records?
Felony.
The felonies. And people want you to be president more.
And
what is happening to our country?
And we're not even talking about the ongoing investigations between the Mar-a-Lago, keeping secret documents
from
Mar-a-Lago,
yep.
The phone call with the Georgia representatives where he was trying to coerce them into rigging the vote for him.
Which it was announced that they'll officially have the announcement on that in this summer.
Right. The grand jury finally concluded. And the sexual assault/rape allegations that are still ongoing against him as well. That trial will be starting soon.
And he could not be stronger than ever.
Right. 4 different investigations ongoing right now, and it makes him more popular. That's the country we live in. I tell you, if I could have stayed in Japan.
Well, because here's the other thing, though, too. And it's a weird, very stupid House of Cards moment with Trump getting indicted like this, because at the end of the day, all of the other Republican candidates, and I'm also including DeSantis in this, even though he's not announcing yet. Apparently, he's going to actually announce his exploratory committee in mid-May. That's why I heard.
I honestly am starting to think that if things keep going the way they're going, he's not even going to run.
I mean, for
Why
God's
would
sake,
you? His
he's tanking his
popularity-
campaign before
Yeah.
it begins.
Yeah.
But basically, every one of those candidates are way too afraid to challenge him on anything. And by putting himself in these situations like this, where he has to be like the victim or the martyr or some stupid thing, they feel the need or compelled to defend him.
Right, because they can't say, like, yeah, he's a criminal, he should be locked up.
Right. So they're just giving him more attention and just constantly just
Because they're
sucking
trying
up.
to be Trump. So they have to say, oh, yeah, it's just a witch hunt by Joe Biden, because that's the Trump way. So everyone's trying to emulate him and copy him. So you can't say, yes, of course he should be indicted. This is just the justice system finally doing their job. You have to say, this is all a political witch hunt. Oh, the Democrats, they're worse than the devil. That's what works. That's what plays to the audience. So they can't attack him on this.
It's baffling to me that he came out of this way stronger. I mean, I thought he was going to get some kind of a bump because of the extra attention that was going to be added onto him. That's usually what happens with stuff like this, and it's still very early in the race. Obviously, it hasn't really even begun yet, to be honest. But the fact that he came out of getting indicted
With an increase.
and
in
having to
popularity.
appear for an arraignment, and he had a stupid court sketch artist draw him like a crazy little gnome, and he still
I think
comes
that
up.
was a picture, Joe.
And he still comes out farther ahead than DeSantis than he was when he was freaking president. It's just baffling to me. I can't believe it. But this is where the Republican Party is today.
Yes, and conservatives in general.
So then let's move on to the other side and talk about the other guy that most likely Trump is going to be facing off against, because Joe Biden has officially announced his 2024 campaign. Dark Brandon. Dark Brandon.
Once again,
Dark
he
Brandon.
feels like he is
Dark
the only
Brandon.
person
Quack, quack, quack.
that can defeat Donald Trump. So he has to be the one to run. Even though when he was running originally, he said he didn't think he would run for a second term. But of course, now he is.
I mean, I'm not surprised by the slightest of this. It was really annoying.
This guarantees, if it's going to be Biden Trump, it'll guarantee that for the third election in a row, we elect the oldest president in the history of our country.
Woo!
Yay.
But seriously, I'm not surprised at all. What were we expecting to happen, especially after the midterms?
Yeah,
Usually
the
presidents
very-
run for election when they want to run for a second term. Like, there are not too many that don't run for a second term.
We'll see if he makes it. But
Well,
yeah,
that
with
too.
the very low popularity
Did you
of
see
Kamala
Nick-
Harris.
Did you see Nikki Haley actually said that?
No.
That
no,
he
but
actually wouldn't live through his second term?
honestly, it's a concern with either one of them. I keep saying it's a running joke. Trump's going to die tomorrow anyway, so we won't have to worry about this. But it's because eventually that's going to be right.
I have to believe that Trump's going to die before Biden. Because at least Biden has like the somewhat more healthy habits.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work that way.
I know, but if there's a God.
Right, which is why I don't necessarily believe that you're correct.
But anyway, so Joe Biden did announce his official campaign in a video where he talked about how extreme MAGA Republicans are banning books, taking away our freedoms, and women's right for bodily autonomy.
All true.
All true. And what are your thoughts on him leaning into that message for the presidential election?
That's what everyone should be. Every Democrat or left-leaning candidate across the country, no matter if you're running for your local school board or president, that's the platform that you should be running on.
I've been listening to some interviews with several pollsters, and the one thing they see that Democrats are doing very well is taking back the word freedom and trying to make freedom mean we're the freedom party. We're the ones that are actually giving you the true right to free speech.
Yes.
Not banning your books. We're giving you actual freedom of bodily autonomy.
When conservatives talk about freedom, they just mean the freedom to take all of your money and keep it for themselves.
Oh, I was going to say, it's their freedom to take away your freedom.
And they don't care. And it's who wants to actually push the government into your daily life? It's conservatives. That's been their platform for, I don't know, the past 30 years,
Yeah.
ever since they embraced evangelical Christianity.
The idea that Republicans are the party of small government is nonsense today. They are one of the most authoritarian regimes we we have in the last 30 to 50 years.
The only thing they mean by small government is just cutting social programs.
Yes,
That's it.
literally. But nevertheless, Dark Brandon will rise again and take on, well, what's the opposite of Dark Brandon?
Orange Donald?
That was where I was going to go to. It just didn't seem that funny, so I'm glad you said it.
He might be running from prison. That would be fun. It doesn't disqualify
That's
him.
the best part about Trump being indicted, because at least even with just the business records, the felony ones, that's going to be happening in later, summer.
Well, the next hearing is December on that.
Yes. So you have, not this summer. Then it's going on to next summer. So you're going to have literally Trump having to deal with his lawsuit stuff while dealing with the primary itself. It's going to be hilarious.
Speaking of
Hilarious?
conservative corruption, let's talk about Supreme Court Justice, the worst Supreme Court Justice, which is an accomplishment these days,
No kidding.
Clarence Thomas.
For those of you who haven't seen, ProPublica put out an amazing investigative piece on Clarence Thomas, because over the last 20 years, Clarence Thomas has been treated to luxury vacations by right-wing billionaire and major Republican donor Harlan Crow.
I think his brother Jim was a real big supporter of the conservative Republican Party as well.
I get it. Jim Crow. I get it. Pretty cool. But according to the article, he and his wife Ginny were gifted cruises on Crow's yacht, which would have cost approximately $500,000, multiple flights on Crow's private jet, and they were allowed to stay at Crow's private resort, even with Crow not being there. And I'm not kidding at all when I say this, where they have a literal painting of Thomas, Crow, and other Republican operatives smoking cigars in one of the main foyer areas of the resort.
Just in case you weren't sure what was going on.
Further investigation found that Crow gave over $500,000 to a Tea Party group that was started by Ginny Thomas, which also paid her $120,000 a year salary.
Which Clarence Thomas did not disclose in his financial paperwork, and when asked about it said, he misread it and didn't realize what he was supposed to be filling out. And he is a Supreme Court justice.
Those Supreme Court justices, they'll make mistakes on paperwork and stuff
Right,
all the time.
They
overlook
misinterpret things constantly.
Because, sometimes their judgment just is a little messed up, and we all do that, right?
It's not like he's a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a Supreme Court justice.
Now, are you ready for the explanation from Crow? In his statement, Crow said that he and his wife have never discussed a pending or lower case lawsuit with Thomas.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be that stupid, right? To be like, you've got this case coming up. Here's how I want you to vote. It's not going to be that overt.
We have, quote, we have never sought to influence Justice Thomas on any legal or political issue.
And that's just a lie.
Crow also said he is, quote, unaware of any of our friends ever lobbying or seeking to influence Justice Thomas on any case, and I would never invite anyone who I believe had the intention of doing that.
Also a lie.
Bull. My God. Are you freaking kidding me right now? This is unacceptable.
This should be highly illegal. This should be one of the most illegal things you could possibly do.
Literally, if there was a grounds for impeachment, this would literally be it. I cannot think of a more illegal thing other than he literally committed a crime. He killed somebody, for God's sakes.
But this is honestly the basis of our entire government, is this lobbying. All of this should be illegal. Anyone spending money to wine and dine any government official, whether that be in any branch,
and let's
should be immediate prison. But it's all fine. It's all fine. You can buy whatever law you want in this country. It's completely legal. So nothing's going to come out of this.
No.
This is done every single day in Washington.
Well, and let's not keep this to Clarence Thomas as well. Any justice that partakes in stuff
like I said,
throw them all to the wolves. I don't care.
Congressman, representatives, the president,
Democrat, Republican, I don't care at all.
But this happens every single day.
Yes.
And it's perfectly legal. There are billions of dollars spent on doing exactly this, and it's all categorized and made legal in part by Clarence Thomas.
Yes. Well, and did you love how he tried to also excuse this as well by saying, Crow and I have been friends for 20 some years, even though they were friends after.
Right after I was nominated to the Supreme Court.
Just like a coincidence.
You remember after the whole I sexually sexually harassed the woman, and we had that. That was like a trial and everything. And then I became a Supreme Court justice, even though I'm wildly unqualified to do so. Yeah, it was right after that time that we became friends. Billionaires own this country.
Well, and I even have a couple more things for you as well. So like you said, Jason, Thomas didn't disclose any of this. While there are ethical guidelines for the court to require to disclose some things and not require to disclose other things, such as food or staying at someone's property, transportation must be explicitly reported, like without a doubt. And then also, to be honest, experts are still arguing that Thomas should have also disclosed the lodging at Crow's resort because Crow doesn't actually personally own the resort. A company he owns does, which is also a private entity. So it's not like his house. Even more so, Thomas has gone on multiple cruises all over the world on Crow's yacht, and ProPublica identified at least 6 undisclosed flights on Crow's private jet, including a vacation to Indonesia, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dollars of just undisclosed gifts.
How many of those do you think were at
whatever
brothels? Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's corruption at its most extreme, and I'm sure this isn't an isolated case, and it happens out in the open constantly, and it's literally enshrined into law by the same Supreme Court that Thomas is a member of.
It's disgusting, man.
It is. That is the thing that shows how broken our system is. If you have enough money, you can buy as much influence in Washington as you can afford. And that is in Congress, in the Supreme Court, in the executive branch, the president himself. I mean, look at all of the laws and policies that Donald Trump and the Conservative Party have pushed forever. And speaking of the laws that the Conservative Party is pushing right now, let's talk about the debt ceiling bill.
Let's do it. Republicans are going to, of course, save the day, do the responsible thing, and make sure our government doesn't collapse.
So the Limit, Save, and Grow Act was passed by the Republican majority House on Wednesday.
I like how it's called limit first.
Limit, but also grow.
Well, no, it's limit, but also save.
And then grow as well.
And somehow also grow.
So what is the Limit, Save, and Grow Act? Is it something to do with greenhouses? Because that's what it sounds like. No, it's actually mainly supposed to be a bill to increase the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion.
Which I think we may have talked about the debt ceiling before is nonsense.
Yeah,
like, we should not be having to...
We should just get rid of it.
Absolutely. And this has been going on for decades now.
It's just a tool to basically cause these sorts of things to happen.
Absolutely.
So it passed 217 to 215 with all Democrats and 4 Republicans voting against the bill. Those 4 Republicans were Tennessee's Tim Burchett, Florida's Matt Gaetz, Colorado's Ken Buck, and Arizona's Andy Biggs. And that's just because they didn't feel the bill was extreme enough.
Yep.
That they needed to put even more ridiculous, conservative, anti-woke proposals in this bill. And also they knew that 4 people could vote against it and still be fine. That's the exact number that they could have without it not passing. So that's exactly what happened, surprisingly enough. Almost like they planned that from the start. So what else does it do? Because the reason why every Democrat voted against it is because it wasn't just about increasing the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion. Well, it cuts federal spending to the 2022 level, which is, I think, like $20 billion being shaved off, and limits yearly increases to 1%, which is, of course, below the level of inflation, meaning there would be tons of cuts in spending. And where's that going to come from? Obviously, the social programs, as we'll talk about here, because it does cut a lot of social programs. First, it rescinds all COVID relief money that's not already been assigned, obligated to be spent. So any extra that we've already budgeted for previously that has not been distributed yet, that could go to local small businesses to lessen the impact that they've had from COVID, that would all go away. It removes the $71 billion increase in IRS funding, which, according to the congressional office, would increase the deficit by $120 billion due to the impact on the agency's ability to recover owed taxes. Kevin McCarthy said that that is necessary because they don't want the IRS to attack all the poor families out there, which is what the Republicans have been telling you was going to have, like, the IRS is going to come after you personally with these extra agents.
Yeah, wasn't that the whole, like, the 80,000 agents are coming, and they're
Right.
using, like, that one guy from The Matrix, the Agent Smith.
Agent Smith. Yeah, no, they're actually going to go after the billionaires and multimillionaires that have been evading taxes for the past 50 years.
Yep.
And they don't have the funding to actually go after those people who we know are 100% cheating on their taxes, as has been reported over and over and over and over again, that like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like the two richest people in the world, pay almost nothing in income tax. The reason why they're never investigated is because the IRS does not have enough funding. So, of course, the Conservative Party is the party of the ultra rich. So they want to stop the IRS from investigating the ultra rich because that's who they really care about. So they want to cut all of that extra funding. One of the few good things that Joe Biden did. Also, speaking of the few good things Joe Biden did, they want to block the student debt relief. This bill would kill that. The thing that's not been done yet because it's in legal turmoil at the moment would also repeal all of the clean energy tax credits, something we gave Joe Biden a lot of credit for. The largest clean energy spending bill in the history of our country. Of course, the Republicans want to demolish that. For some reason, they don't want to do anything about fossil fuel subsidies.
I wonder why.
I don't know. And in fact,
I'm surprised that the party that stood up and started going crazy when Joe Biden even mentioned the word oil doesn't want to do anything about that.
In fact, their bill would increase domestic production of oil, natural gas, and coal, and ease permitting restrictions that delay pipelines, refineries, and other projects.
Oh, so, just screw everything, apparently.
Destroy the environment.
Yeah.
Because it belongs to all of us, but the only people that should benefit from it are large oil companies. Let them drill on public lands and take our resources that belong to us as a country and make profits for 1% of us. Sounds good. Just all of the resources and richness of the land that belongs to everyone. Let's just make sure that that only benefits the oil executives. And it also expands work requirements for Medicaid and food stamp recipients. It is estimated to impact 15 million people, with an estimated 1.5 million losing their Medicaid coverage.
Also, super good stuff.
All right, we have too much healthcare coverage in this country. Our healthcare is too good.
We can't say too much. We come from a state right now that just passed a tons of bills about putting restrictions on unemployment insurance on our own Wisconsin workers. So, great.
The worst off people, the people that are dealing with the most hardships in their lives, let's make things much harder for them.
The kick them while you're down approach.
Yeah, you know how it's really easy to file paperwork to get any kind of government benefits? Let's just make that a little harder.
Yeah.
Of course, this bill has no chance of becoming law. It will not pass the Senate.
No, and Republicans are even trying to adjust it right now anyway because they hate it.
And Joe Biden has said that he will veto it.
Oh, of course he will.
And it's really it's the let's get rid of everything Joe Biden has done over the last 3 years bill. So, of course, he's not a big fan.
Nope, not at all. And again, Republicans are willing to destroy the world economy to take away health care from people who need it.
Now, shut down the government, close every federal park, remove funding for every federal employee, and basically, cripple our economy.
Well, I cannot stress it. It's not just our economy. It is the world's economy. We are...
Default on all of our loan payments.
We literally default on our loans, which will throw the entire world economy into absolute chaos.
Because they want to
take people off of healthcare.
roll back the last 3 years. Because they don't like the fact that we elected Joe Biden. And he did the things that he said he was going to do when he was running for president. Because of that, they want to basically throw a hissy fit.
Yep.
Yay, Republican Party. I can totally understand why half of the country votes for them.
Well, let's talk about more reasons why they vote for them. Because while things are absolutely crazy on the federal level, they're even crazier on the state level. Many of you probably have already heard about the Tennessee Three, where 3 people were sent up and voted on being expelled from the Tennessee State House.
2 black men and 1 white woman.
You want to guess which one wasn't expelled? Do you really need this long to think about it? Yes, the Tennessee State House, which is obviously predominantly Republican, voted to expel 2 duly elected leaders of the House because they took part in a gun violence protest at the Capitol.
Following a mass shooting in the state.
Now, there's been a lot of coverage about this already, so we won't go into too many details because, first and foremost, I think the Tennessee Republicans just screwed up royally. They turned 2 to 3 no-name people that no one would ever know. We'd never know their names to nationally known household names because of how bad they were being.
Well, and they were both reinstated, too. They actually made them much more popular. I know one of them was the first one that came back. They were going to do a special election to re-elect the seat, and they had the city council had to
vote on
to put a temporary replacement in the seat, and they unanimously voted to put that same person back in,
which was expected from the get-go.
Right.
The whole point of this was just to show that Republicans had power to do this, and boy did it backfire.
Yes.
Something you may not have heard about, though, was that in Montana this last week, another representative was voted on and censured for supposedly helping out a protest. This was Rep. Zoe Zephyr, who is a transgender woman and the only transgender legislator in the Montana State House, and she was recently censured because of her terrible, horrible behavior. Here's what happened. The controversy began on April 18th when the House was debating a ban on gender-affirming care because, again, Republicans care about the people, blah, 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 blah. During that, Zephyr...
Get government out of my personal life.
Right.
Except if it's something that I morally disagree with.
During that, because obviously Zephyr was a transgender woman who obviously supports evidence-based gender-affirming care, said one of the coldest, most badass lines I've ever heard during a state house debate. She said, because apparently she was referencing they had a super religious invocation beforehand. I don't know if you guys know this, but most governmental bodies, local, all the way up to federal, do invocations where sometimes it could be like a little speech or a religious prayer or something to start things off.
And it's usually 99% Christian
prayers.
Prayer.
Well, apparently they had a super religious Christian prayer beforehand. So during the debate, Zephyr said, quote, "I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands," which offended the Republican snowflakes.
Pearl clutching abounded.
The facts don't care about your feelings crowd has a lot of feelings about this. The speaker demanded Zephyr apologize, which she did not. The Republican speaker then refused to let Zephyr speak on the House floor during future debates. Basically, she would try to speak, they'd say, "Nope, don't recognize you," and moved on, which led to protesters gathering during these sessions in support of Zephyr. Well, on April 20th, the Republican speaker refused to let Zephyr speak again, and protesters started shouting from the House gallery, "Let her speak." Police had to be called to remove them, session had to be temporarily stalled, and 7 people were ultimately arrested for trespassing, which is basically, I don't know about you, Jason, but I would call this the definition of a civil protest.
Right. They did not break in and beat up police in the building. They didn't smash windows to get inside. It was an actual
civil protest.
Right. It was a nonviolent protest.
Well,
much how Ron Johnson would categorize January 6th.
You would have surprised the Montana Republicans because they were trying to frame it as Rep. Zephyr leading a literal violent insurrection on the Montana State Capitol.
Right.
And
no one was dressed up as a buffalo or nothing.
And they had to censure her because they could not condone more political violence in their house. I'm literally not kidding. This is how stupid this is. And of course, on Wednesday, Rep. Zephyr was censured on a 68-32 party line vote, where now she can no longer participate in any in-person committees or any in-person activities on the floor. The 2 committees she was in were shut down, and the bills that they were to hear were moved out to other committees. And the only thing she can do is vote remotely. Now, I didn't know this. I'm going to let you say this.
Yes. So currently, and this was yesterday when she returned, she is working from a bench in a public hallway outside of the House chambers.
Perfect.
The Republican speaker, Matt Regier,
lame,
told her she could not sit there despite it being a public space. She refused to move. Obviously, she's in the right. House security officers threatened to move the bench that she was using.
Moving the bench?
That is how petty they are. And it's literally like right outside of a snack bar that's like right outside of the door so she can still hear what's going on and she can vote remotely from there. But they don't. That's too much. You cannot be in a public space that any other person in the state of Montana could occupy. That's not good enough for them. That's how petty and ridiculous and childish they're being, because she called out their cruelty when it comes to the trans community on the actual legislation that they are passing that will lead to the deaths of people. But she called that out and said that they will literally have blood on their hands and they should be aware of that. Hey, we can't have that kind of violence in the House. We can pass legislation that will directly lead to the deaths of marginalized groups, but we think they're icky, so you cannot stand up for them in this building.
I mean, can we simply call it what it is? I mean, this
Bigotry?
This is literally fascism. The idea that you are going to bully your way out of duly elected representatives, whether it's in Tennessee or Montana or wherever, and then just say, no, we're just going to remove you because we don't like you anymore. This literally sounds like exactly what fascists would end up doing. And I know that fascist is now being like almost like a meme word at this point, but like that, what else would this be? This literally sounds like the whole Wilmington coup crap that we were talking about, weeks ago, where they would literally just replace people and try to oust people whenever they felt like it. The whole point of removing a duly elected state representative was supposed to be for the worst of the worst.
Like, say, someone who commits 32 felonies.
34.
Oh, sorry, 34 felonies. Like, campaign finance fraud and misusing their public office. That sort of thing.
Not for literally standing there while a protest is happening.
And telling people that you don't agree with what they're doing and that what they're doing will lead to harm for other people. That's too much.
So let's talk about these hypocrisies that they have here, right? We have the limited government that they're clearly overbearing just to spite their other colleagues on the other side they disagree with. Freedom of speech, apparently saying you have blood on your hands is just way too out of bounds. We just can't do that now. So the whole free speech crowd and the whole, again, facts don't care about your feelings crowd has a lot of feelings that are just clouding up their free speech.
The party that has spent the last 40 years telling Democrats that they want to take babies that have just been born and murder them.
On House floors, by the way.
How many times have we heard that rhetoric? Like millions of times?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody complained. Like, it's a lie, but you can say it all you'd like. No one was censured. No one was banned from the state houses or Congress. But don't stick up for the trans community. We're demonizing them currently. That is the current culture war. We need to force them back in the darkness. We don't want to talk about them openly in public. They don't exist. And if you do anything to try to protect that community, we're going to use the political power that we have to silence you because we believe in the freedom of speech.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous, until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy ain't right.
We are going to close out today with our Foxed in the Head segment. Now, this doesn't necessarily always have to be about Fox. Even though it's called Foxed in the Head, it's just supposed to be a general term for...
stupid.
Yeah, and conservative stupidity. This will be the last time we get to talk about Tucker Carlson as being a Fox employee.
Yeah, and it's a really disgusting one, too. Because usually these are just funny and stupid. This is pretty damn gross.
Just a continuation of what we were just talking about, the conservative war against the trans community.
So, and also the Tennessee 3. The reason why they were protesting is because in Nashville, you had a shooter who shot up a Christian religious elementary school. And that shooter happened to be trans.
And of course, the problem is not the ease to which anyone can obtain a firearm.
Which is usually where the conservatives try to align themselves with very quickly, right? It's like, it's not the guns, it's the people. It's not the guns, it's the people. We shouldn't talk about guns. Oh my God, it's not the guns. Let's stop overblowing and politicizing this. This is terrible. We should just let the victims be for a little bit.
Right. We can't do anything to try to prevent this in the future right now because we're still mourning what happened. Mental health, thoughts and prayers. That's usually the conservative response.
No, but it's this time because it was a trans shooter, someone they have developed into a moral panic. They latched onto this extremely quickly and went full out saying about how trans people are trying to kill us all. And nothing could summarize that entire stupid stupid reaction better than Tucker Carlson's insidious rant about how trans people are the natural enemies of Christians. And I have segments from his rant. Are you ready, Jason?
Go for it.
In Christianity, the price of admission is admitting that you're not God. Christians openly can see they have no real power over anything and, for that matter, very little personal virtue. They will tell you to your face if they are sinful and helpless and basically absurd. They are not embarrassed about any of this. They brag about it. That saved like a wretch like me goes the most famous Christian hymn written in English. So let's start with that.
Yeah.
The power that religion pushes people to just hate themselves.
Well, and like the whole beginning part, like you're not God, none of us are special. How is that different than like almost any other religion and even non-religion? You don't have any power. Yeah, I'm an atheist. I don't believe anyone has any power either. And I don't believe that anyone is God either.
You're not Superman, Jason.
We can't actually change the weather, no matter how much we... Trust me, if we could manifest things by our thoughts, Donald Trump would have been dead a long time ago. I say it every day. I keep trying to hope it into existence. It's not working. So I don't know why Tucker thinks that Christianity is somehow unique in that aspect.
Let's keep going. The trans movement takes the opposite view.
They do think that they're all God.
Well, here we go. Trans ideology claims dominion over nature itself, which, no, Christianity literally claims dominion over nature itself. That's the whole point of the Adam and Eve story. Are you kidding me? There's a whole section of Christians that call themselves dominionists. Moving on, we can change the identity we are born with. They will tell you with wild-eyed certainty. Christians can never agree with this statement because these are powers they believe God alone possesses.
Bold of Tucker Carlson to call anyone else wild-eyed.
That unwillingness to agree, that failure to acknowledge a trans person's dominion over nature incites and enrages some in the trans community.
If you think about it, right? Christians that are against being able to transition, whatever, right? Their whole idea is, no, you're supposed to be a specific way because that's the way God made you, right? That means that they somehow understand how God works. And it's not that God made them trans, which could certainly be an interpretation, right? You are exactly as God made you. You're uncomfortable being the sex you were assigned at birth. God gave medical science the ability to fix that for a reason. You can make that argument. But no, they say, no, I know the way it should be. I understand my God that I worship. And he wants you to suffer. He wants you to potentially kill yourself. That's why he made you this way. And you're meant to stay this way. And yes, he's omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient, but he couldn't have figured out that medical science would eventually one day make it so that you could be transitioned into the gender you felt that you were. So you're getting one over on him by using this loophole. And I know what he wants and he doesn't want you to do this. That to me is way crazier and way more trying to control nature with that interpretation. And for anyone, Tucker Carlson, anyone to make that argument on religious grounds, your argument is not as sound as you think it is.
No.
It's just your idea of
literally
how you think the world works. There's nothing in the Bible about transitioning from one gender to another.
Well, and again, let's talk about dominion over nature right now. How many ways can you think about how we are already taking dominion over nature in a non-gender way? For God's sakes, I'm wearing contacts right now.
Yep. The light should bend in your eye so that you cannot see anything clearly.
Like, what are we even talking about
That's the
anymore?
way God intended.
It's so descriptive. It makes it so... The fact that he's using this bullshit rhetoric to target and encourage people to say that trans people are the literal enemies of a religion is insane to me. I'm going to keep going. I have a little bit more. The trans movement, it turns out, is the mirror image of Christianity, and therefore its natural enemy. People who believe they're God can't stand to be reminded that they're not. So Christianity and transgender orthodoxy are wholly incompatible ideologies. They can never be reconciled. They are on a collision course with each other. One one side is likely to draw blood before the other side.
Oh, and a call to violence.
I wonder which side it's going to frickin' be.
Yeah, I like that. We have to kill them before they kill us.
Well, and this goes back to the other things where there was a lot of outrage over, oh God, what was his name? The douchebag Daily Wire dude at CPAC who said transgenderism needs to be eradicated, for God's sake.
Michael Knowles.
Thank you, that jerk. They're literally calling for violence against this group of people, and no one cares. Fox News didn't care about
that. That is not why Tucker Carlson got fired.
That's exactly what I'm talking about right now. Fox News did not care about this.
I bet his ratings went up after he said that. That's what the Fox News crowd wants to hear.
Could you just imagine if, just for fun, we'll say Don Lemon ran a segment on CNN that said Christians were the natural enemies of blank. I wonder how the religious right would act. I wonder how the Republican Party would act.
Right. They would say he's calling for a holy war, that he should be taken off the air. That kind of violent rhetoric has no place in our society. We're so divided. We don't need people like him trying to make us more divided.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And I can't stand the hypocrisy, especially when it leads people to violence. It just drives me nuts. So let's end on a good note. Good?
Is it good?
Let's go back home to Ron Johnson, our beloved senator.
Who is still somehow our senator.
Because we're
even more embarrassed to be I was already embarrassed to be in this country. Now I'm embarrassed to be in this state.
Because Wisconsin was too racist to elect a black guy.
Yep, essentially.
So Ron Johnson, during a hearing talking about climate change, you can already see where this is going to end up being, says that global warming is good because Wisconsin's already too cold.
You should see Ron Johnson's heating bills for his mansion.
Are you ready?
I can hear it in his voice.
Good.
That's the worst.
Because I'm not impersonating him.
How could you do a Ron Johnson? You just have to smack your head with a hammer about 40 or 50 times.
In terms of excess deaths, well, actually, a little context before I say anything. So he's talking to, I believe, like an economist or someone who has presented a global warming study that basically laid out all of the issues of global warming and climate change over the next 20 to 50 years.
Raising temperatures, sea level rise, coastal areas being destroyed, houses being underwater.
Right, exactly. So
millions of people dead.
So Johnson is questioning this guy, Dr. Greenstone. He says, and I quote, "In terms of excess deaths, a warming globe is actually beneficial. In my own state, we'd have a reduction in death of about 54 to 56 people per 100,000. Why wouldn't we take comfort in that?"
And the reason why we have so many people dying in the cold, because we don't want to have clean and cheap energy for anybody, because the fossil fuel companies need to make money.
Yep. And after Dr. Greenstone tried to explain to how Johnson was misunderstanding his study, Johnson interrupts and says, quote, "If you want to balance it out globally, if you want to mitigate harm globally, deaths caused by heat are around 600,000 annually, and deaths caused by cold are around 4.5 million annually. So if you want to mitigate harm, we would be in a better position to prevent death by having the climate increase."
Yes, let's change the climate so our planet becomes less hospitable overall. Let's not give people housing so that they don't die in the cold, because it's generally the homeless population that's mostly impacted. Nope, let's make the earth warmer.
Well, and again, I have to make it very clear.
This is how stupid he believes this. Ron Johnson believes this.
I have to be very clear. The study was a global study. This was not just America, although there would be plenty of areas in America, like in the Southwest, in Florida and Texas.
Yeah, Florida would be completely underwater.
Right. They will be devastated by this. So because Wisconsin's a little too cold and it's going to help Wisconsin a little bit, that's perfectly fine for the million of other deaths that's going to happen all around the southern half of our country and around the world.
And you also want it to be 110 in the summer here too. That would be fun. God. Winter's a little bit more mild.
So after being corrected again about how he's not understanding anything, but specifically how Wisconsin is not the world, and that the deaths and damage would be far more widespread than the deaths prevented from the cold in Wisconsin.
Not to mention all the water shortages we would have even in this state if the climate increased like that, all the lakes that would dry up.
Johnson holds the study up to the camera and everybody where you can see all of the red areas where it's going to lead to the most death. And he says, according to your study, you'd be concerned if you're in the really hot regions of Africa.
But nobody cares about that because they're black people there.
But in terms of the United States and most of Europe, we're in good shape.
He said, I literally don't care what happens to Africans. But the white people, the United States and Europe,
Hey, we're fine.
who cares about the rest of them?
Screw Africa.
The rest, they're black. So, win-win in Ron Johnson's book. And again, it's still not even good for Wisconsin. There'd be so many negative things that would happen even in the state of Wisconsin. What about the deer population and hunting and all? That would all go away. The deer would have to go north to find better climates. Our state economy would be devastated. All of the natural resources, which is the majority of our tourist money that comes in, it's from hunting and fishing, that would all be destroyed by global warming. But Ron Johnson's, he doesn't care about that, right? He's rich. All he cares about is, maybe it's a little nicer for him in the winter. He doesn't have to shovel. He doesn't have to
Pay someone else to shovel.
He doesn't have to pay the company that shovels
As much.
And, when it's 110 degrees in the summer, he can go somewhere else anyway. But yes, he's so stupid, like so incredibly stupid. That's what he thinks about global warming.
Yep.
We shouldn't do anything to combat it because he wants it to be warmer.
In Wisconsin.
That's why he spends so much time in Florida right now.
Oh.
Good job, Wisconsin. At least we did elect Janet Protasewicz, something that we've been harping on over the past couple months. That did happen.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the good news.
Right. Hopefully that will bring some balance back to our state. Nothing else went well in that election, but at least the most important part got done. Dan Kelly, if you want to see who Dan Kelly was, just look at his consolation speech. It's horrible. Just hateful.
I reveled in that speech so much. It was beautiful. Oh, go look it up if you haven't seen it. It's the greatest 10 minutes you'll ever see in your life. He's so mad.
Well, and we said he's a terrible. I don't understand how he won the primary. Why anyone would be backing him?
Because
I knew that was going to be a loss. Yeah, but even so, do they want to win, right?
No.
And they had another terrible person that was a better candidate right there.
They don't care about winning. They're just crazy.
Like, he's an angry white man like me.
Yeah.
He has zero chance in the general. And he's already lost when everyone thought he was going to win previously.
I know.
Whatever.
So, we're back. We're caught up now, at least. Oh, God. We'll see you next week. Unless Fox decides to fire us, too. Maybe we'll do a podcast with Tucker Carlson.
You think he would come on?
I think he's got some time now.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
We'll try again. It's been too long, apparently. And I swear to God, if they did you not put the Oxford Common there, or did they not put the Oxford Common in there
For
the Limit, Save, and Grow Act?
I just copied and pasted.
Those bastards.
That's the way I usually do it, though.
Those.
That's the way I was
no,
taught.
No. 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 But continue.